Hi, my name is Onyeka Chiro and I'm a consultant at 19060659 Horizon Consulting. I'm here to present my client road project titled Reducing Utilities Costs for Properties Managed by my client. My client is Eminent Estate, and the presentation will follow this structure. We'll talk about the project phases, the introduction and context of this presentation, the work, project aim and objectives, recommended solutions and the samples of the solution, and then solution model testing plan, the way we tested the solution, the evaluation and the output. And then we'll go ahead to discuss the data visualization and communication of insight from the testing, and then the interpretation and comparison with our initial hypothesis. And then we'll discuss the amendment and adjustments, and then move on to discuss the next steps and recommendation for the client. Look at the client feedback, my key lessons, and personal reflection. Here are the phases that this project has undergone. The first phase was the project introduction. In that phase, where I acquired the client and discussed the possible business problems the client is facing, developed the business scope, talked about the Gantt chart, the project plan, developed the project plan, developed the communication strategy and communication plan, and the risk assessment analysis. And then we moved on to the project the client project business analysis. In this phase, from the data I got from the client, and analyzed the client's business to understand the current trends and events, what's happening in the client business, and also compare that with existing literature and project works in the same line of subject and industry. And then I went on to discuss to analyze the client business based on PERSOL and SWOT analysis, and then identify the key gaps and pain points that the client is facing. From that phase, I moved on to the project methodology and the methods, where I basically outlined and x-rayed based on research the perspective and philosophy for which the solutions will be arrived at. In that same phase, I also discussed the sampling, the data sampling style for the primary data. Also discussed the measures for which success can be measured and other ethical issues. And then lastly, the phase, which is what this blog is about, is the client project closure and reflection. And in this presentation, we are going to look at the final recommendation, the testing, and the steps for the client. My client, like I've said, is Eminent Estate, and it's a housing and property management business. It's a firm, and they're based here in the United Kingdom in Luton. And currently, they manage about 26 properties. And if you look at this data, first thing you'll notice is that the houses this is named House 1 in numbers. First, because of privacy issues, from the data I got from the client, I removed the address and named them in this manner: House 1, 2, 3 to House 26. And what I also did was to name the houses in descending order based on the number of units each house has. So that, for example, House 1 and 2 has more units than, say, House 6, House 10, and on. However, what I notice is that the size of the house does not solely determine the cost spent for utilities of that house. For instance, you notice that House 1, for instance, costs more to service utilities compared to House 21, for example, or House 16. And that's what we notice. And again, we also notice that as expected, gas costs more for the client in the whole utility spend, followed by, again, as expected, electricity, then Wi-Fi, and then water, which is the cheapest cost. And what's more is that the government parasite at the House of Commons Library is saying that energy is going to go up as well. And this is more reason why my client is concerned about understanding ways to reduce cost for the properties they manage, because they take on this cost for their tenants. So like I've said, like I stated, the goal or the aim of this project is to find ways to reduce the cost, the spend for utilities for all the properties managed by my client. And the objectives that have been focused so far all throughout the project are these three objectives. The first one is to investigate the associated cost for maintenance and the utilities of all properties managed by the client. Initially, maintenance was part of the objective. However, my client didn't have enough access and information for all the happenings of maintenance, which limited that objective. So the client and I settled for the utilities, and then the next objective is to explore the patterns and trend, which is what have been achieved as well. And find ways to harness what that can be harnessed to optimize or minimize spend. And the third objective is to recommend solutions on how these costs can be reduced. If you look at this map here, you will notice that you see the concentration of where my client properties are. So my client has properties, all the 26 properties currently being managed is in and around Luton. Here are the recommendations that have been made for the client. These recommendations are in two parts, technically in two parts. The first part is the cost-effective or minimal cost solutions. The second part is these ones are capital intensive. So if you see the second part, it involves retrofitting and use of smart appliances, and that solution itself, although it's ideal to reduce cost, but it's highly cost intensive, and we're not recommending this solution currently for our client. And the second one is to install solar system, and the advantage of this one is such that at some point the client has to stop depending on the national grid of electricity and gas. But however, that is also cost intensive. So what we're basing on is these two cost minimal, the little cost solution. And according to Bede and Kadara, for the first one, video instructions to occupants, according to Bede and Kadara, they explain that cost for utilities is usually based on the behavioral pattern of people who occupy these houses. And then, so this video instruction, the idea is such that we create bite-sized video instruction for the occupants so that they could familiarize themselves with ways to minimize cost spent in the properties prior to moving in and during their moving in. The second solution is about posters and maybe stickers, if we could say that, on appliances and switches, for example, where occupants will be reminded of using minimal energy and minimal spend utilities for the properties that is being managed. So here are examples of some of the ways, the recommended solution. This is a video that shows how things can be spent. This, for example, is this switch. There's a sticker under the switch that says save energy, turn off light after use. This switch as well, this sticker is on this switch, save energy, please switch off after use, thank you. And then the wash area, see a wash area with some instructions, use less heat when needed. You don't need to wash with high heat all the time because it consumes energy. This is another type of sticker that can be around a wash area, for example. Wash more at once, use lower temperature. Washing more is some people can wash just few clothes at once. So now we move on to the testing plan, criteria, evaluation, and the output. So for this solution to be validated, there are some testing plans that were put in place. So a survey was carried out on a certain demographic which fit our clients' occupants. Our clients the houses occupied by our clients are mostly occupied by students, and most of which are international students. So a survey was carried out for Spain students living in the UK, and this map shows where most of the responses came from. Recall in the previous map that the client properties is located in Luton, which is around this place. But most of our responses came from this area, which covers, broadly covers the area for which the client properties are located. and then this area around Bristol and Cardiff, and then in Liverpool. And then this shows that it's sufficient to make conclusions, from the people who give this reply, and then this the solution also is followed the testing plan also followed this process. The survey the survey was formulated, after which it was verified and tested. I tried it out with a smaller group to see how functional it is and how effective it is, and then distributed the survey. And then after the survey was ended, we collected and cleaned the data and analyzed it, and then came up with the recommendations for this work. So the next thing that we're looking at is the criteria. How do we measure if the survey is successful or not? So the response rate, initially I got up to 105 response rate above my target, but after declining the data and moving incomplete responses, I landed at 64% response rate. And I mean that seemed plausible according to Fuse In, who stated that 48% response rate, 48.1% response rate is sufficient enough for conclusion. And the validity, like I said, it covers the demography for which our clients' occupants fit into. And then this result, is valid enough to give conclusion. The solution is cost effective, it's accomplishable, and it's measurable, which is a criteria for which we set for this. The evaluation, the analysis of the test responses is what is going to show the evaluation, and for which we benchmark. I benchmark with the findings of the project goals initially stated, and the benchmarking of the findings with the hypothesis of the project from the start of the project, and the adjustments, if there are any adjustments and enhancements. The output is to confirm if the solution is functional and if to reduce spend. And so here's the insight we got. 60.5% of people believe that at least the solutions will be very effective, and then only about 9% think that it's going to be ineffective or very ineffective. And comparing these two, it's reasonable to conclude that a lot of these respondents who fit into our client demography will say that this is plausible and the solution is plausible. And again, what we see again is that that up to £50 could be saved on if these solutions are implemented. Up to £50 per month per household could be saved if the solutions are implemented. And so the respondents who gave these responses also are currently implementing other energy saving solutions in their current homes, which gives validity to the fact that it is, to the fact that up to £50 could be saved. Although 8% think that up to £100 and £200 could be saved. And then 94%, an outstanding 94% of the respondents think that the stickers would be a very good solution for the client to implement, and 84% think that the solution would be a very good, the video instruction would be a very good solution for the client to implement. This further confirms one of our hypotheses of saying a behavioral pattern is a key driver of utility spend in the client's business. Now to the solutions and amendments and recommendations. These solutions have limitations, and one of the key limitations of this solution is government regulation, tariff from suppliers. There are two in client block 2. We discuss how that there are two sides of the cost, the influence of the cost on utilities: the exogenic and the endogenic cost. The exogenic cost, which deals with external causes, external influences on the cost, is things like the government regulation, the tariff from suppliers, which are key factors. If the suppliers change their cost, then the cost is going to change for our client. If the government changes regulation on how costs can be charged, charges can be made and all, it also influences this cost our clients will pay. So which means it affects the solution. However, if the solutions are not implemented, it is going to even become worse if these influences make the cost go up. And there are no adjustments for this solution based on the current testing, even though we are recommending to the client upon pilot scale implementation, there should be some continuous evaluation and review, and this solution is valid for implementation. So here's a summary of what has been done so far. The client have said the goal is to find ways to reduce costs for minimize utility spend for all the 26 properties currently managed by our client, and the approach that we have given is to adjust behavioral pattern of the occupants and to see how that adjustment can reduce the cost. And the two solutions under that is video instructions to occupants, stickers on appliances and switches, stickers which you can also call posters. And then we've tested the solution, and over 80%, which in one case is 84%, in another case is 94%. Over 80% confirm that the recommendation is valid, and up to £50 could be saved, per household per month. And the conclusion that although government regulation can influence, government regulation on tariff from suppliers can influence this this solution, it's even going to get worse if it is not even implemented. The solution is recommended for use. And here's the next step for the client. The first thing, when the client wants to implement the solution, the first thing is to run a pilot scale, script the energy saving instruction both for the videos and the stickers, and then implement and distribute according to the outline that was put in the blog, distributed to the client, which the client has access to. Record the initial spend, record mid-term spend, and record the final spend, and then do evaluation and review of the process and how it's going. You do mid-term, pre-term, mid-term, and end-of-term surveys for the process, and then after the review, make amendments and do the full implementation on all properties, and then continue to make review and amendments. So here's the client feedback. Basically, the client is grateful for the project. In one instance, they said your work is instrumental in providing alternative ways of saving on utility costs. And he also mentioned that although they've encountered a few challenges along the way, that this is also going to go a long way to save them. The client also regrets the fact that at some point that we also regret the initial challenges in trying to communicate with us. There was this challenge in trying to communicate with them from the start. But overall, the client is thankful for the unwavering commitment for the project and the solution, the effect solution is going to have. I've learned a few things while carrying out this project, and quite a number of things. This is just some of them. And one of it is the networking. I got the client through a casual meet and greet networking. And it is a key lesson for me to learn that for a consultant to do well, you have to network and to build your client base. And time management has been a key factor. It has been very crucial. At some point, I ran behind schedule, but I've learned, to pick up pace and break tasks into chunks. And then the project plan, there has to be a project plan. Without the plan, without the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, it was going to be really daunting to finish this task. And then adaptable communication, based on the challenge I faced, I learned that everyone has a different communication style. You need to adapt to it. And then research skills that brought us to this phase. Here's my personal reflection. Throughout the presentation, there are points of pain, points of stress. One of which was engaging with the client, time management, and even the scope. One thing it made me feel very frustrated when I was trying to get hold of the client and I couldn't get hold of the client. I was all busy back and forth. But I realized that I could ask for a contact person. What I did, I asked for a contact person. They gave me a contact person, and from that process, I learned that there's some ways to go. It's an adaptive process. It's not a one-size-fits-all process. And the scope issue, for instance, this client wanted something, and then we discussed the likelihood of that thing being achieved. So going forward, what I'm going to do is to understand clients and see how I can understand their current their situation, to adapt my work to what they want and how they can be satisfied. This project has made me feel confident about all the things I've learned, and I hope to implement them in my career going forward. Here are the references I used, and this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.